Hi folks, HR Funk here. Occasionally usually someone much younger than me, will call me a boomer. And I would like to say once and for all, for the record, I am not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer. But the subject of today's video is also called a boomer, and in this case that has nothing to do with its birth date, but everything to do with its bore dimensions. What I have here, folks, is the Charter Arms Boomer. And the Boomer is a compact 5-shot revolver manufactured by Charter Arms that's chambered for the .44 Special cartridge. And in this video, we're going to take a close-up look at the Boomer here in the shop. Then we're going to head off to the range and see if it lives up to its name. So here we go. As usual, we'll start our up-close look at the Boomer with the way you bring it home from the store, which is in the box. In this case, the box consists of a fairly modest plastic hard case that you see here. It does have latches and locking points if you want to lock your firearm up inside the box. Opening the box, we find the Boomer itself, packaged in protective plastic. Also, there is this card, which gives some information about Charter Arms revolvers. And let me change the focus so you can read this as I do. And according to this, Charter Arms revolvers have a 4-point lockup for their cylinder. Also an 8-groove barrel that yields higher velocity, at least according to them. A faster lock time, I'm not sure what it's faster than, but they indicate they have a faster lock time. Also a hammer block safety, which is something Charter Arms originated. And it also indicates that their revolvers are the most compact on the market by 20%, rated for plus P. Now, I don't know that the Boomer is rated for .44 Special plus P. I suspect this goes in with all their revolvers, but that is in there. You get a trigger lock, and underneath this cushion, there is also an owner's manual, warranty card, and other information about Charter Arms. So I'm going to move this all off to the side, and then we'll concentrate on the Boomer itself. And here's our first up-close look at the Boomer itself. As I said in the opening, this is a compact 5-shot revolver chambered for the .44 Special cartridge. And the Boomer essentially is a compact version of the classic Bulldog revolver from Charter Arms. And the first revolver I ever fired that was chambered for the .44 Special cartridge was a Charter Arms Bulldog. And one of the things I remember about that experience was there was more than a little bit of recoil generated by that .44 Special cartridge. So I'll be interested to see, since this is a more compact and even lighter version of that same revolver, what the recoil impulse is like with the Boomer. Now, there are a couple of things that have been done to try to help out with that recoil impulse. One of them is the porting that you can see on the barrel right here to try to reduce muzzle flip and a little bit of at least the perceived recoil. Also, there are rubber grips right here, and these grips feel pretty good. They've got this pebble texture on there, and I notice when I'm holding this revolver, it feels good in my hand, but the back strap is left exposed, and I'll move this around so you can see it a little bit. But because of that, I'm still going to have this metal back strap impacting this web of my hand as I'm shooting, and again, I'm wondering what that's going to feel like. There are other grips available from Charter Arms that cover this back strap, so if you're considering one of these and you're concerned about the recoil, check out the Charter Arms website and you can get the information on those replacement grips as well. And here's a starboard side look at the Boomer, which was designed specifically for concealed carry, and you can see some features here that lend themselves to that. For one thing, this is about as snag-free as a revolver can be. There is no hammer spur on the back of the hammer here. In fact, this is a double-action only operating system, and there's no front sight. So the front sight's not going to snag on anything during a draw, but you don't have a front sight to use for aiming. So this revolver really is intended for up-close encounters, and I was trying to think when I was considering this revolver, who might really be interested in a firearm like this if they have reason to be concerned for their safety at very close range. And one of the people I thought of was my wife, who, as some of you know, is an attorney, and occasionally she has people sitting across the desk from her that are somewhat, shall we say, volatile. And if someone is in a situation like that where they may have reason to fear for their life at arm's reach or even closer, I know of one encounter with a law enforcement officer where he was literally fighting with someone who was on top of him. The officer was on his back on the ground, and that officer was able to draw a backup revolver and use that to defend himself from that individual. Obviously, that was basically contact distance. So in an encounter like one of those that I just talked about, something like this where you don't have to worry about match grade accuracy or aiming or anything else is going to put those big 44 special bullets on target very quickly and hopefully end that situation and maintain your safety. Taking a very close look at the Boomer, we can see a few machining marks left over from when it was being manufactured. And for a revolver in this price range, and the Boomer is considerably less than a lot of wheel guns that are offered by competing companies. So because of that and because of the use of this handgun, I can excuse a few cosmetic blemishes. The big thing is how well it works. And let me change this a little bit so you can see a little bit more of it. Also, real quick, the revolver is unloaded. And the action is pretty smooth. I get a little bit of resistance right there, a little bit of stacking, but then you push through that pretty easily, so not bad at all. The timing is good. The action, as I said, is double action only. It cannot be cocked, so if I try to cock the hammer, it's not going to stay in a cocked position. And when I release it like that, that internal hammer block safety would keep the revolver from discharging. So we don't have to worry about that. It is strictly double action only. There's that exposed back strap that I talked about a little while ago. As I said, however, these grips feel really good. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to feel when I'm shooting it. There's an up-close look at that 2-inch tapered and ported barrel. And between the tapered barrel, the lack of an ejector shroud, and this aluminum trigger guard right here, this revolver is about as light and carryable as it can be. Charter Arms rates this as weighing 20 ounces. I'm going to weigh it on my scale here momentarily and see how much it weighs. And I also want to see how much the weight changes when it's fully loaded with 5 rounds of 44 special ammunition. Here we see the only sighting reference for the Boomer, that being the groove in the top strap. But with no front sight, we don't really have a second reference point. So this really is a point and click style revolver. It's not something that's likely to win any sort of shooting awards for you, but it may well just keep you safe in a very bad situation. This is a brand new unfired revolver, but one of the things I notice is the ejector feels a little crunchy, I guess is the word to use. It may well loosen up with some time and use, and it appears to function properly, but I just noticed that as I'm pushing. You might even be able to hear that. And maybe it seems like it's smoothing up a little bit just as I'm working it here. So that's probably just because it's new, but it's something I noticed with the Boomer. The cylinder release works smoothly, no problem with that. The cylinder itself turns, and I don't know if I can get this. No, I'm not going to be able to turn it freely, but I'm not feeling any resistance that I can impart to an issue with the cylinder. There's no binding going on. I am starting to see a little bit of a turn ring right here, which is common for many double action revolvers. Some people get very concerned about that, but it's just normal wear. There are 2 different versions of the Boomer revolver offered by Charter Arms. One is the matte stainless version that you see here. The other one features a black nitride finish. So here we go with the weight of the Boomer unloaded. It's actually coming in lighter than 20 ounces, which is what Charter Arms rates it. So 18.4 ounces unloaded. Now let's load it up and see how much it weighs with 5 rounds of 44 special ammo. And rather than loading the cylinder, I just put 5 rounds of 246 grain lead round nose 44 special ammo on the scale, and the weight now is 22.5 ounces. So even fully loaded, the Boomer is still a very carryable package in terms of weight and also its dimensions. The Boomer is covered by the Charter Arms limited lifetime warranty, and that is a warranty to the original purchaser. It has an MSRP of just over $450. In fact, they list it on the website at $452.52 for anyone who's interested. So now let's head out to the range and see if the Boomer lives up to its name. And here we are on the range with the Boomer, and in just a couple of minutes I'm going to start to shoot it and see how it performs. But there are a few things that I want to tell you about before I start shooting. First off, I'm going to deviate from my standard handgun testing protocol in this video. And if you've seen previous firearms, specifically handgun reviews that I've done, you know that I shoot from the bench, I shoot from distances as far away as 25 yards, I do things like failure drills and what have you. I'm not going to do any of that with the Boomer because that's just not what kind of revolver this is. This is meant for very close range applications, so I'm going to be shooting from distances like 2 yards and 3 yards and maybe 5 yards. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to be doing some one-hand shooting, I'm going to be doing some two-hand shooting, and I want to see how smooth the action is or is not. I want to see how the revolver reacts in terms of its recoil and its controllability. I want to see where the bullets strike compared to where the revolver naturally points, or at least where it naturally seems to point. And those are the things I'm going to be looking at with the Boomer. Now, I do have 3 types of ammunition that I'm going to be shooting. 2 of them are factory loads. The first is going to be the ammunition that you saw when I tested the weight, and that is some older Winchester factory ammunition. In fact, someone gave that to me years ago. I don't know if Winchester even still manufactures it, but the ammunition is still good. It's just been around for a while. And that is a 246 grain lead round nose bullet load. After that, I've got just a couple of rounds of Winchester Silver Tips, and I don't remember off the top of my head, I think they're 210 grain. And with those, mainly I want to be looking at the recoil impulse and also the point of impact of those bullets. I also have some of my hand loads. Then what I'm using are the Skeeter Skelton 44 Special loads. If you don't know what that is, Google Skeeter Skelton 44 Special load and you'll find out what it is pretty quickly. Now those loads are kind of warm for 44 Specials. They're not hot, but they are warm. It elevates the 44 Special up to about the same power level as the 45 Colt. So I want to try some of those in the Boomer and see how they do. And by the time it's all over, hopefully I'll have a pretty good idea of how the Boomer performs in its most likely applications. So here we go. And here we go. First up is that 246 grain Winchester round nose lead bullet. Try it with 2 hands. So, not bad from that distance of 2 yards. I'm hitting a little bit low. I was trying to point right at the center of the heart, and you can see I'm hitting a little bit lower than that. But the controllability was pretty good with that factory Winchester ammo. Now, that type of 44 Special ammunition is known for being a pretty mild load, so recoil wasn't really an issue. I think the follow-up shots were pretty good. No issues with bullets going any place that I didn't expect them to go. So let me switch over now to that Winchester Silver Tip ammo and we'll see what happens with it. Folks, I've only got 2 rounds of this Winchester Silver Tip load, so I'm going to fire them both right here from 2 yards and we'll see where they hit. A little bit more steam behind those than there were with those other lead bullet loads that I shot a moment ago, but still not bad. I'm getting more flash and more blast, but the recoil still wasn't too bad. So again, I was trying to aim at the center of the heart as best I can with no sights. One shot hit lower part of the heart, this one clipped the side of it, so this is hitting a little bit higher than that first load that I tried, but I think this is a lighter bullet too. Again, I think this is a 210 grain load, and I think 2 44 Specials, one through the heart, one clipping the heart, is probably going to end this guy's day. By the way, if anyone's wondering about extraction, they just basically fall out of there, so no issues with that so far. Now I'm going to try the Skeeter Skelton load, and I'm a little bit trepidatious putting those rounds through this revolver, but let's see what happens. All right, here we go, folks. I really am a little bit nervous about this. Hopefully all will go well. I think it'll be okay, but let's find out. And I was nervous enough that I pulled that first shot way off to the left. But the revolver's still in one piece. I still have all my fingers. Let's try a couple of shots two-handed. That's more like it. So this load does feature a 240 grain semi-wad cutter, and you can see that it's cutting nice round holes. These 2 shots were all on me over here, folks. I was just really a little concerned about capping those off. As soon as I saw that everything was fine, these 2 that I fired two-handed are hitting closest to what I would call point of aim, or maybe I should say point of point. Both of them are on the heart, and I think even though these are not expanding bullets, this guy would have been done right there with two big 44 caliber holes in his heart. So now I'm going to back off to a distance of 3 yards, and we'll try the 246 grain Winchester 44 specials from that distance, and I'll try a few more of these Skeeter skeleton loads from that distance. Also, one more time on the extraction from these fired cartridges. That one wasn't fired, so it fell out, and looks like I'm going to have to help them a little bit, but they definitely are not sticking in the chambers, even though that's a much warmer 44 special load than typically you would get with anything from the factory. So on we go to 3 yards, and this is once again that mild Winchester factory load. Try it first one-handed. No problem there. How about two-handed? And no problem with those. So as it turns out, there was a problem. I forgot to start my target camera. Here are where those bullets hit. I've actually got 2 shots through that hole, so that's kind of impressive. 1 shot in the heart. Again, these are hitting a little bit low, and I think that just has to do with the way this revolver points, and that ammunition just seems to hit a little bit low because it seems like everything else is tending to hit higher and higher. Let me grab a couple of those Skeeter skeleton loads. We'll do this same drill with that from 3 yards and see how they do. Okay, I think I got all the cameras going this time. Let's find out for sure. Okay, yes, everything looks good. So once again, Skeeter skeleton load, distance 3 yards. Let's see what happens. Wow. I think my bad guy's done. Did I ever mention this is my absolute favorite 44 special load? Wow. 3 shots on the heart. One of them just grazed the heart on its way through the lung. Again, I think this bad guy is done for. And this is all with no front sight, folks. So this is just with the pointability of that revolver and what little bit of acclimation I've had to it during the course of whatever I fired here, probably less than a dozen shots. And they are staying right there. Now, obviously, these are very close distances, but then again, they're probably realistic for a lot of defensive firearms engagements, and that revolver is absolutely controllable, and the action is smooth enough that I'm able to put shots on target just like that. So I'm very impressed with the way the revolver is performing at this point. It's living up to its name of Boomer, and I'm liking it quite a bit. Okay, folks, I'm going to fire just a couple of shots from 5 yards. I think this is probably getting close to the maximum distance that I would feel comfortable shooting this revolver with no sights whatsoever. The first 2 shots out are going to be that 246 grain Winchester factory load. The second 2 shots are going to be the Skeeter skeleton hand load. I'm going to fire all of these two-handed. I think if I'm 5 yards away from my threat, I'm going to have enough time to get a two-handed grip before I shoot. So let's see what happens. Pull those off just a little bit into the right lung. Let's see what happens with the hotter loads. And I pulled one of those even farther off to the left. So again, with no front sight reference whatsoever, I'm just pointing and cycling the action, and we can see that I'm already at this distance of 5 yards starting to get a little off on my accuracy. So in case you couldn't see it in the split screen video, my shots are here, and one of those Skeeter skeleton loads went down here. I don't know if this was the first one or the second, but I'm obviously pulling these off to the left. So I think 3 yards for me is about where I'm going to start to get kind of shady with my accuracy. But we have reached the point in the video that you've all been waiting for. Is the Boomer attack driver? I'm going to put a tack on the target, I'm going to load up 3 rounds in the revolver, and we're going to find out. So here we go. Yes, the Boomer is attack driver. So final thoughts on the Charter Arms Boomer, folks. I've got to say, I like this thing a lot more than I ever thought I was going to. When I was handling it back in the shop, I thought, yeah, it's light, it's compact, the grip feels pretty good, but when I go out to the range and start to shoot it, it's probably going to be a little beast. And it's not. It's relatively pleasant to shoot, considering that I'm shooting .44 special ammunition, and even with that warm-loaded Skeeter Skeleton load, this was never punishing to shoot or unpleasant. It was scary when I shot that first round. And by the way, that very first shot that was way low and to the left, that was all on me. That's not the revolver. But this is never going to win any kind of a target shooting match or anything like that. I'm not entirely certain that I could pass a law enforcement qualification course with it. But if you're looking for something that's fast, simple, and works well and is going to put big bullets on target quickly, take a look at the Boomer. Again, I like this thing. The price is reasonable, especially compared to revolvers manufactured by some other companies. It has a lifetime warranty, so that's cool. These grips kind of impress me. And when I think back to the experience that I had, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, where the first .44 special revolver I ever shot was a Charter Arms Bulldog, and by comparison, that was a much more unpleasant experience. I think some of that had to do with the fact that that revolver has all wooden grips, and every time I fired around, it was a little bit like somebody whacking me in the web of the hand with a baseball bat. And I don't get that sense with this revolver at all. If I didn't say it before, the action is very smooth. The cartridges extract easily. Now, you saw that with the Skeeter Skeleton load, I did actually have to pull them out, but they were not stuck in there. It was not taking a lot of effort. That's just a function of this relatively short extractor rod. So in any case, that's the Boomer review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. If you go to Optics Planet, remember my discount code there. That'll save you 7% from Optics Planet. Oh, I want to say thanks to House of Pain Armament for receiving the Boomer. And if you go to House of Pain, you can use my discount code there. Don't forget that, HR Funk. Also, thanks to Charter Arms for sending me the Boomer. Unfortunately, I have to send it back, or else I have to send them a check. And at first, I was pretty sure it was going back. Now I'm sitting here thinking, you know, maybe I have room for a .44 special revolver. Oh, one downside I want to mention before I finish the video has nothing to do with the revolver itself, but everything to do with the chambering. And that is the availability, or maybe I should say lack of availability, of the .44 special cartridge. Unlike 9mm ammunition or .45 ACP or .40 Smith & Wesson or even some of the other revolver cartridges, .38 Special, .357 Magnum, you don't see .44 special ammo all that often these days. Now, if you're a hand loader, that's no big deal. You can load up your own ammunition. But if you're relying on factory ammunition, it might take a little searching to find .44 special ammo, or you might be able to find it on the web. So if you can get it online and get that sent to you, if you get one of these, I would say buy a bunch of ammunition so you don't have to worry about going back relatively soon and finding out everything's sold out or you can't get it or whatever. But back to what I was saying before, don't forget Targets Online. Go to Targets Online, check out their inventory, see if they have anything that's going to meet your target needs. And until next time, folks, hopefully with a Boomer, good shooting. Bye-bye.